Here's a little demonstration of the two-colour brioche technique known as double Dutch, although I prefer to think of it as the one-pass two-colour brioche. And this is for the thread that I've put into the brioche forum on Ravelry so that people can see the effects of what I've done. The first part of this swatch was done with the traditional two-pass method, and you can see quite clearly every black stitch here on the front side has a green yarn over shawl working its way up to the shoulders of it and down on the other side. That's exactly standard what you would see on any two-colour brioche done the normal way. Here's what it looks like on the other side. This time it's black yarn overs creeping their way up to the green stitches. It's actually easier to see the passage of the yarn overs on the other side. Not the best colours, I realise, for choosing for demonstration purposes. The middle band of this swatch is what I worked with, what is currently perceived to be the way to do double Dutch, the one pass, which is using one colour in each hand, or I guess you can do it any way that suits you best, but I find it easier as a double knitter to work with one stitch in each hand, because that's how I do double knitting. You can see already there's quite a marked line sort of between my two thumbs here where the texture of the fabric changes quite remarkably, and then it changes again at this line here. So from here up to here we've got quite a different structure, and if I stretch it apart so you can see, rather than having every stitch with its little yarn overs, there's these little columns of V. They almost look like little knit stitches themselves, but actually they're formed by two stitches. Let me see if I can get this. Sorry, two yarn overs going up to the same stitch. Just there where my finger is pushing through, you can just see two green stitches working into the same black stitch just there. And that gives this, it's a rather nice texture, I think, but it's not true brioche. It's very, very different. You can see at the bottom it's sort of got this herringbone effect where every single stitch has its little green V, and then up here you can see that it's something entirely different. What does that look like on the back? Well, pretty much what you'd expect. It's a carbon copy of what you get on the other side. So it is a reversible fabric, but it's slightly different. This is what Liz Kimber has mentioned today on the Ravelry forum, and she thinks perhaps it should be called half brioche, and I think that's not a bad name for it at all. So then this top part of the swatch here, sorry about the clanking needles, top part of the swatch here, you can see we've gone back to the original fabric. This is one where every stitch has a little yarn over shawl. It looks exactly the same as it does here at the bottom. Now I didn't work this the same. This top section was worked with my method of doing the one-pass brioche, which I believe gives you a true brioche fabric, unlike the double Dutch there. This is a true brioche fabric, and I'm quite excited about it. So how is it done? Let me show you. It sort of makes sense if you think about it. When working two-pass brioche, sorry, there's nothing for you to look at. When working two-pass brioche, on the first pass, you work all the knit stitches with their yarn overs, and you slip all of the purl stitches, creating a yarn over as you do so. And on the second pass, you purl all the purl stitches with their yarn overs, and you create a yarn over for every knit stitch as you slip it. So by the end of the second pass, what you've effectively done is you've worked every single stitch, and you've given every single stitch a yarn over. That's not what happens in double Dutch, which is why you get that difference in the fabric. So I was thinking about this, and I thought, well, how can we do it so that we work our way across, giving every single stitch a yarn over and working every single stitch in turn? And the way to do that, I'm just going to slip my selvage edge stitch there, and then, actually no, do you know what? I forgot what I'm doing there. I'm going to knit it. Sorry about this. Should have thought about this before I started. So there we go, I'm going to knit that selvage edge stitch there. Then I'm going to bring both my yarns forward. I've actually dropped. This isn't going terribly well, sorry about this for demonstration purposes. Normally I'd redo this, but I don't have the time, I'm afraid. So we're going to, let me just get a couple of stitches into it, and you can see exactly how it works. So here I'm going to, there we go. I now know what I'm doing, I'm in the flow. So normally with the double Dutch, what you would do, and this is no different, you would knit into the green stitch there and its black yarn over. You'd knit the two together. You'd make sure your needle goes under that pearl coloured yarn. I've got my pearl yarn in my left and my knit yarn in my right. So it goes underneath, which is as normal. Wrap it and pull through and slip off. Then you would bring the the yarns together, and you would purl what would then be a stitch on its own. I've got every stitch has a yarn over, so you can see there's 2 threads waiting to be worked. I'm sorry the lighting here is appalling. Hope you can make out what I'm doing. So there, I'm going to purl that one. And then, normally in double Dutch, what you would do, it just popped up on my screen, there we go. Normally in double Dutch, what you would do is you would take the pearl yarn to the back, leaving the knit yarn to the front, and go in again to knit. Well, that's not what we do here. So if I get to that point again and show you, so I've just done my first knit stitch there, bring the yarns forward, I go in to purl, my brioche purl, my burp, and then instead of taking the yarn to the back between the needles, what I do is I take it over the top of the right needle, creating a yarn over there. So we do the knit, making sure that we go underneath that back yarn, the bark stitch there, brioche knit, bring the yarns forward, and then do the burp, the brioche purl stitch, there, and then take the yarn to the back over the top. So let me show you that again, and I'll show you what it does. So we've got the knit there, yarns forward, and the purl, but we can see that when bringing the yarns forward, that's already created a yarn over for this purl stitch that we're making now. Then what we do is by bringing that yarn over the top, it's making a yarn over for the stitch we're just about to create. So we're sort of doing one before and one after, but it gives us a green yarn over a black stitch there, and a black yarn over a green stitch there, which is exactly what we want. So you can get up a real good flow just by working all of these stitches together, and you can see that there's really not much to it. If anyone has seen my demonstration on double knitting, or how I double knit, which is also on my YouTube channel, you'll see that the mechanics are actually very similar. It's just these yarn overs that make the difference. So one more time, just for clarity, brioche knit stitch, going underneath that back yarn, not over the top of it, underneath it, knit and pull through, bring both yarns to the front, go in, do the brioche purl, the burp stitch, knit, purl it, take it off, and then take the purl yarn to the back around the top. Then every stitch as we work our way across has a yarn over. What happens on the reverse row, I hear you say? Well, it's a very good question. Absolutely, I've just done that wrong, I think I dropped a stitch somewhere. Absolutely nothing changes. Everything stays exactly the same. So you do your selvage edge stitch, and then you will go into brioche knitting and brioche purling exactly as I've suggested here, taking the yarns over the right hand needle after you make the purl stitch. What that gives us, you'll see on the needle over here, is every single stitch has a yarn over with it. So it looks like a bit of a mess on the needles. If you're used to working the brioche technique where you see one stitch with a yarn over and one stitch without, then this will be different for you, but that is how I do the 2-colour but 1-pass brioche. I'm not going to call it double Dutch because double Dutch seems to be now something different, but I call it 1-pass brioche, and it is a true brioche fabric, as evidenced by these yarn overs here, which you can't see on that side, but on this side you can see perfectly. There we are.